Amid the many important global issues being discussed at the UNGA, concerns voiced from Africa are often overlooked. Would a more united Africa with one continental voice command more attention at the UN? This is one of the topics I discussed on this week's Straight Talk Africa with a dynamic group of experts: Pauline Muchina, Africa Representative, American Friends Service Committee; Kwaku Nwama, analyst and professor of School of International Studies at American University; and Nyaka Lagoke, analyst and assistant professor of history at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania.
For several countries to come together to agree on a single platform, it has to serve everybody's interests. These countries have their own national interests, and they are pursuing that. Now, if we can come together and agree on certain things, that will be fine. But not having continental unity doesn't stop you from, working on a common platform. You can do it. There's 54 countries over there. They can meet and agree on certain things.
You might have a platform. You may have an agenda that you think would be would be pushed through. But if you are not contributors to the United Nations, if you don't have to contribute, it means nothing. Yeah.
Yes. So for example, take the ICC problem that Africa has been having. Right. There's a lot of talk about it. I'm not going to get into that. But they tried to get Article 16 changed, and it was Kenya that pushed that. Many of the African countries that were supporting Kenya hadn't paid their dues, so they couldn't vote. So these are the things that happen. It's not just wishful thinking. You have to pay. You have to pay your share.
And
let's hear from Nyaka, please. Yes, go ahead.
Of course, we have to take responsibility, and then we have to be better than that. I completely agree with you. But we should not just we should not be talking about African issues like in a laughable manner. Yes, the leaders that are there, and again, most of the leaders, I can say that, they have been placed there. So, now things are changing, but we know that there are many leaders in Africa that were placed there, and then to serve the interests of the Europeans. And that's also a fact, and we're not going to try and have a conversation about Pan-Africanism today. But my point is that, yes, we are right that people need to be united for a greater purpose. And yes, we have to fix our respective houses. I agree with that. But at the same time, and I'm going to seize the opportunity to talk about the reform of the United Nations, there is no way America is going to come and talk about democracy. They're going to put billions of dollars to promote democracy across the globe. And then on the international level, they want to act as like an autocrat nation, or those five permanent powers there. They want to dictate their worldview to the globe. This is also an issue. And as an Africans, and then we have to be jealous of our freedom, of our welfare, and we have to pause, and we have to ask them why they cannot use the democratic values at the level of the United Nations in global affairs. And that's a relevant question, and we have to ask that question.
And actually, that is perhaps something that we need to talk about. Do African leaders at the global level feel intimidated to address some issues before the powerful leaders of this world? Can they stand up to them and say, this is what we think you're doing wrong, and you better do things differently?
Some of them can, and some of them cannot, because of their own history and their behavior or practices at the country level. But some of them can, especially the new ones who are coming in that don't have, the baggage.
Yes. Before they get reminded that we subsidize your democracy.
But what's the purpose?
But I think, it's so critical for them to understand that if they don't stand together, they will be defeated, and not to vote with their stomach.
Yes.
Most of the time, African countries vote or stand on certain issue based on the money they are receiving. So that dependency on these Western countries or China, for example, have to come to an end. We haven't even decided as a continent how we're going to engage China. Look, they're taking over Africa.
They have taken over.
But so my point I'm making is, what's the purpose of speaking up if you don't have what it takes to be actually free? So take Ghana, for example. Kufuor gives this nice lecture to Macron on Ghana beyond aid and all that stuff. And then in the very next minute, he's asking for aid. So I don't care about all that. Can you speak out? Yes, you can talk. That's easy. It's easy. And it's very easy to blame other people. The wounds that really matter are self-inflicted.